Hello and welcome to Otterwood Cottage, our beautiful and very frosty small holding in the heart of the Lincolnshire countryside. I'm Emma and we're delighted to have you along with us. So today is a very beautiful and very frosty day. Sun's out, ground is solid. Looking forward to getting some work done on the small holding. The first job, unfortunately, is going to be a bit of a case, I think, of closing the stable door. After the horse has bolted, we've had a bit of a disaster in the fruit cage. If you watch my fruit cage planting video, you will know that I was worried about the fruit trees we were putting in for a whole host of reasons. And the reason I didn't think of and should have was that we've left the sides open for now on the fruit cage, and that was quite a deliberate move, thinking that we would need to get it caged off once the berries started to come, to prevent birds coming in. But over the last few days we have had all of the trees and even the raspberry stalks have been stripped, debarked. You can probably just about see this one behind me, and I'll show you they're all really damaged. I thought it might be deer. Looking at it, it's from the bottom up, so it could be deer, could be rabbits. Either way, I fear that the trees have probably seen their last. We're going to leave them in the ground and see what happens, but debarking, I know, can be pretty catastrophic. So I think before they've even had a chance to get started, we've probably lost them, which is absolutely heartbreaking. One of those things, we should have got the sides on. Realistically, we just haven't had time since we put the trees in. We have not had time to put the sides on. We are going to get them on today. And maybe one or two of them will survive, but every single one of them's been stripped, so I don't think they will. It's a real shame. I don't know, as I say, if it's rabbits or deer, but either way we obviously should have kept them out and we haven't. That brings me on to another decision we've made, which is an additional bit of infrastructure work that we are going to do on the property before we get to spring. It wasn't something we'd planned to do, and in terms of finances it means that other projects are going to have to be pushed back because it's a relatively expensive project to undertake. But we have realised that if we don't do this, we will seriously come to regret it come the spring. So I'll show you what that project's going to be just now. Okay, so I've brought you over to the boundary fencing where we have our 3-strand electric fencing, 1, 2, 3. That hasn't been switched on yet. If you've watched previous videos, you'll know that there's just a bit of a chicken and egg situation. We need to trim back all the hedges. We haven't got the equipment to do that yet. We're waiting to be able to have the pennies to get the equipment we need to trim the hedges. We were going to borrow one. There's a whole drama, a whole story that I won't bore you with now. But at the moment, the hedging will be touching the electric fencing, so we'll just keep kind of shorting it out, which isn't what we want. So we do need to trim all the way round. But what we have also realised we're going to need to do, and it was an unexpected but necessary, I think, additional expense that we're going to have to just swallow and do before we get to the spring, or we'll really regret it, is we're going to also stock fence this to try and rabbit and deer proof the property. I think larger deer probably would be stopped by the electric fencing. We don't know that for sure because we haven't switched it on, but we have seen muntjac. There is a big enough gap here for a persistent muntjac to try and get through, and more importantly, the rabbits will definitely be able to get under and through this fence. And we've had to cover the garlic bed, which I had talked about a couple of times and finally got around to doing because there was significant evidence of rabbit burrowing. They hadn't really touched the garlic. I guess they don't like garlic, but they were interested in the bed, and so they'd been digging into the bed. There was kind of rabbit poo all over the place, so it was definitely rabbits doing it. And what we realised was that if we don't stock fence, rabbit proof the whole property, we're effectively, with our growing area, just going to be building a bunny buffet. They'll just come out of this space here at night and fill their boots, and absolutely everything we plant is going to be decimated. As you can see from the trees, that's already clearly been demonstrated that something is getting in. So we are going to buy some stock fencing and pop that on the other side. So the electric fencing's on the front side. We're going to use the rails, the posts rather, that we've got in place, and fence this side of the boundary fencing. We're going to go all the way around the property to try and protect us as best we can, and to bunny proof it as best as possible, we'll take the fencing down and at a right angle under the ground. So that's going to mean digging up a strip of the turf all the way around the outer fencing, popping that in at that right angle, and then covering it back over so the rabbits can't dig under. It's disappointing that we're going to have to do that. It's a big job that we hadn't planned in. It probably means that I guess the greenhouse isn't going to happen this year. We had hoped to at least get the foundations for the greenhouse dug and in, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that this year. This is the way of things. You have to kind of make your choices and sacrifice what you're going to sacrifice. But we don't want to build a rabbit restaurant. We want to have growing space that we can protect as best as possible, and so plans for that underway. At the moment there's no point us even trying to do that. The ground is absolutely rock solid. All of the swales that had filled with water on the land are now, we could go ice skating on them. They're even the very deep ones are frozen right through to the ground, which is really quite beautiful but not conducive to digging, so we're going to wait till the weather's a bit better for that. But in the meantime we are continuing with, we're going to put the sides on the fruit cage. We're probably going to have to replace all those fruit trees, but nevertheless the sides need to go on, so we're going to get that done while we can, while the ground's nice and hard and we're not going to get muddy doing that. And the other thing that we have been doing since the last video is starting to get cardboard down and compost and wood chip inside what will be the polytunnel. We're not going to kind of sheath the polytunnel until it's warmer weather, but we can. There's no reason for us not to get the compost and the wood chip in, so we've been spending some time doing that. We're about a third of the way of doing that, and we're going to continue with that today as well. So a couple of big jobs today. We're going to see how we get on. We'll bring you along with us, and we'll keep you up to date. So as is the way of things, when you start actually doing a job and realise that things you'd planned aren't going to work out the way you think they are, we've got round to the rear side of the fruit cage where we had the extra roof netting hanging down, and I think I'd said before we were planning to leave that hanging down, so if the roof netting tore, we had the flex in it to be able to undo the cable ties along the end and pull it and kind of tie it up through the tear. What we've realised as we're coming round with the outside is that we're going to trap that in, and it would be very complicated and very difficult to do that. So instead we are going to cut that extra netting off and just keep that somewhere as patch repair netting rather than pull it taut netting with the extra give on it. So a small change, a small adaptation as we've gone round, but that's how these things go. You realise when you get to it that it isn't going to work the way you thought, and so you adapt. Here we go. It was at this point in proceedings that we've realised it's not just the trees that have been debarked. Every single one of the fruit bushes has been eaten down to the ground. The little labels are just laying forlornly on the floor with nothing around them. So heartbreaking, but lesson learned. I think we've lost the lot. We'll have to start again. There you go. It's nature being nature. It's not the rabbit's fault. It's our fault for not protecting it properly, but really heartbreaking. All right, so what we've done so far, and it looks almost invisible because it's black netting. I don't think you can see it at all on the video, but what we have done so far is wrap the netting all the way around the cage, including the door, so it stops. The join is where the door opens, and very loosely just on the corners, loosely cable tied, to keep it in place as we were unwrapping, and then we're going to slide it down so that there is a bit like I was describing with the stop fencing. The netting will have a right angle to the floor. That will get stapled in with the ground staples, and then we'll cable tie to the top, and then to each, we'll give some cable tying to each of the uprights to keep it nice and secure. So hopefully that will hold it nice and tight. As we've been doing it, we can see it's a kind of plastic mesh. It's pretty well, it's pretty sturdy against birds, which is what it's designed for. But a determined rabbit or a determined deer is going to just chew through it. So doubly sure that stock-proofing the whole property is the way to go, and just hoping that, well, to be honest, I don't think they can do any more damage, even if they do get into the fruit cage. The trouble is going to be, of course, if between now and us getting the whole property rabbit proofed, whether determined rabbits come and chew through all of that net that we've just put on. So we may doubly regret this. Yeah, I don't know what the solution to that is. We're just going to have to cross our fingers and hope for the best. And if we need to fix it, we'll fix it. Okay, Sunday morning. Super frosty, really hard frost last night. But just to bring you up to speed to where we got to yesterday. So the netting, the side netting was added, and on two sides the top has been secured down with 11 billion cable ties on those two sides, at which point it's a job that you can't do with gloves on. So at that point my fingers got so cold and we were losing the light that we just gave it up as a bad job, or I gave it up as a bad job, and came in with a view to today coming back to finishing that side and that side with cable ties, at which point secure all the way around the top. And then in the meantime, Mr. H pulled back the wood chip that we've got around the edges of the cage so that we can staple down the bottom part, which serves two purposes. One, it keeps everything secure and taut, and two, it serves as a little bit of a barrier to anything that might want to burrow in. And then they are, just get the staples, so they are hammered in with our lump hammer. We were a bit worried this morning that they wouldn't, the ground would be too hard to get those in, but I've just done a test one and it went in no problem at all. So it's just there. So I'll turn you around. So all being well, we should be able to call the fruit cage finished by the end of today, with the exception of the fact that the planting in here will all need to be replaced. So we did a little bit of research last night which confirmed that the trees are definitely Donald. They're not salvageable. They've been girdled all the way around by the rabbits. It's a very common thing and we should have thought about it. So a very expensive lesson learned. We've reordered the fruit trees. I haven't reordered the berry bushes at the moment. I think the berry bushes probably have had it, but there are little teeny tiny stumps left, and we've just decided, cost wise and just being kind to ourselves wise, we're not going to overly worry about all of the fruit in here. If the berry bushes come back, then good for them, and we will get whatever harvest we can, and if they don't, we'll concentrate on the fruit trees. They're the higher value yield to us initially, and we'll replace the berries next year for next winter planting, rather than trying to rebuy everything twice in the space of a couple of months. So a very expensive lesson learned. We have learned the lesson. Protect your trees, peeps. I have additionally invested in some tree guards, so as well as the surrounding of the fruit cage itself, we're also going to guard the individual trees with some relatively heavy duty tree guards, and also the ones in the orchard. One of those has already been stripped. The pear has been stripped. We haven't replaced that one, but there's a cherry that looks like it hasn't been completely stripped yet. They didn't quite get to that one. so we're going to protect that one. So those should be coming next week. We'll replant those next weekend. In the meantime, yesterday Mr. H also did some more wood cardboarding and barrowing of compost into what will be the polytunnel. So that, as you know, the frame is there for the polytunnel, so we're filling that. That's almost finished now. I think we'll probably get that finished today, although all the compost is kind of frozen in place and hadn't fully been raked out, so that might take a little bit of stomping with our feet. We didn't show you that because you've seen loads of time lapse of us barrowing compost out to a space, so we probably didn't think that would be particularly fascinating for you. And then just to also say, because I feel like this has kind of been a bit of a downer video and I try not to be too down, a couple of things to talk about with the fruit cage and the losses. First of all, we know that this is not the end of the world. It was expensive, it was frustrating, but there are bigger things going on in the world, and there's no use crying over girdled trees. It is what it is. It isn't the end of the world. So we are remaining relatively chipper despite the disappointment in that. But also, I will show you a little bit of footage now. Our seedlings, which I planted, the chilies, peppers and aubergines, which I planted on the 1st of January, have started to germinate, and as all of you growers will know, that makes you do a happy dance and is the best thing that can happen, seeing the very first seedlings of the year. So we've had a brilliant weekend from that point of view because the seedlings are germinating. One of my grow lights has decided that it no longer wishes to work, so we've just got the one grow light, but that's absolutely fine for what we've got there. And if I need to get, because we're in the conservatory, one grow light may actually do the job, so we're not going to worry too much about that for now. So that's super positive. And also, just it has been the frost and the ice and it's like a picture postcard here looking out the window in the morning, and we're still pinching ourselves that we wake up and get to see that. So I didn't want this to be a downer video. We are still extremely positive. There's been some disappointments. It is what it is. We'll crack on, get on and finish the fruit cage today, and then if we're really feeling like we want to push it on a Sunday, we may also see if we can get the chainsaw working and deal with that fallen tree that came down in Storm Bert. So there's our Sunday. We'll bring you along with us. I'll catch up with you later. Hope everyone's having a lovely weekend. Okay, to finish up the day, the side netting has been stapled in all the way around and the wood chip pushed back over. The top of the side netting has been secured with all the cable ties, so that shouldn't be going anywhere anytime soon. And we have finished carting all of the compost. So the interior of the polytunnel is completely composted. We've not been able to bring out the wood chip to go on top, and I'll show you why in just a second. The reason we've not been able to bring out the wood chip is, as you can see, this pile is absolutely frozen solid and it's been impossible to break the wood chip apart for the compost. Mr. H has managed to create this compost igloo, but that is a thick crust of absolutely solid and even gapped like that, and pushing down hard on it, it won't collapse. But the wood chip, where it's much looser material than the compost is, the water's got down into the wood chip and frozen solid all the way through, so we're just not able to break that apart to be able to take it out. So that's where we've stopped for today. The ice and the cold conditions have stopped us really being able to do anything else outside that needs doing currently. we decided that playing around with the chainsaw in freezing weather when the floor's slippy is probably not the best idea for all kinds of health and safety reasons. So we're not going to attempt to try and sort out the fallen tree. So we're stopping there. It's just after lunchtime. We're stopping there to go inside, do some indoor jobs, warm up, and we'll see you very soon. Hope everyone has a lovely week.